Well, it's another session of the then and the now, and this is Coach Zetcher here, and I've got one of the all-time great University City High School athletes here, and a great Missouri University football player and baseball player. But before I introduce this gentleman, and I'm calling him a gentleman in loose terms, um, I want to have a shout out to my daughter Emily Brockman and my grandson Leo. They had a lot to do with the you can see it back here, the Maccabi games just now, and St. Louis 17 and under boys basketball. It's the first time in the history of the Maccabi games that the St. Louis, all these little Jewish boys, they won the whole thing, Coach, on a buzzer beater at the end. So that's awesome. And then over here, this is the Spady Elementary School, and I still go there as a substitute teacher, and I'm the absolutely their most favorite sub because my nickname is the recess sub.
Both worthy of a shout out
The
right there.
recess sub. You got
Yeah,
that one,
yeah.
huh? And then over there, that's a Big Eight. That's where my friend who's sitting here, he played in that conference, that great conference. And now I'm going to introduce my friend. Well, no, one more thing. My daughter, Stephanie Brown, one of my five girls, and her husband, Andy, they have a camp, an overnight camp. And at the end of the summer, they um, they take care of trans kids for 1 week and just give those kids, they're all together, and those kids just feel so important and so loved. And it to me, that's one of the best things that any of my daughters
Not
do.
enough of that going around.
There's just not enough of that at all. It's not
Yeah.
even close. And the week before, my son-in-law, the, they rented his camp, this group. It's called the Survivors of Siblings. And what they are is these are siblings whose brothers or sisters, young kids, have cancer. And it gives them a week to be
The f
doted on
the
because when
focus.
they're at home, you
Yeah,
know how that is.
yeah.
And there's a young sibling who has cancer. Well, you know who the parents are going to pay attention to, as it should be. Anyway, let me introduce my friend here right now. Really a great U City athlete, a football, basketball, and baseball great, uh, Mr. Pete Woods.
Hey, Ron. Great to be with you.
It's good to be with you, Pete Woods.
Coach Z, I should say.
Go
Sorry.
whatever, I've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
called worse.
You're right.
But
Probably
Pete,
by me.
yeah. So yeah. By the way, Pete was I was thinking about some of the pitchers in the history of U City, and Holtzman, of course, comes to mind right away, and then Pete Woods is right there, and then I probably was a distant 12th. Anyway, but Pete
I
was
have
a
to
great
look you
pitcher.
up. I have to look you up.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
umpired a few of your games, I
Yes,
believe.
you did. And another guy named Mike Immergut, who you remember Mike?
I know Mike well.
I
but-
thought you might.
Well, I know that I'm way, way ahead of him on the food chain.
I'll tell you how the memory is still there, at least for this issue. Mike Immergut called me out on a third strike in the Corey League when I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and I've never forgiven him. And I just reminded him of it yesterday. So,
And Mike's a good guy, and he had a great career over at Brentwood, still coaching baseball, and
Yeah.
he's good for kids.
Yep.
He's very good, and he refereed some.
right,
Pretty good.
right.
He's a very good high school referee, and he works some small college basketball also. So, Pete, let's start here. You graduated from U City in 1974. However, tell me how it all started with your athletic career, and how old were you, and what grade school did you go to in U City, by the way?
Oh, boy, now you're really going back. Started off at Flynn Park,
Oh, well, you
School.
were one of the rich guys. Okay,
and then
go ahead.
and then they changed the boundaries because I was north of Delmar, north of the Great Divide, now they call it. And I ended up going then to Delmar Harvard. And then they had what was called the Ward Sixth Grade Center for a year. So all the sixth graders in U City came together, sort of a precursor to junior highs. Some of us went to Hanley back then. Well, you're talking about U City stuff here, but Hanley Junior High and Brittany, we had rivalry there. Hanley no longer exists, but yeah, I went to Hanley, then U City, and sports was, I was the middle of three brothers. I'm the runt. Ultimately, both my brothers are taller than I am, but I was blessed with some athletic ability, and I recognized it early on at Flynn Park. You'd be playing with kids in the playground, and I could kick a little farther. I could hit it a little farther. I could throw a little bit better. And, when you're a kid, that's important stuff. And I also did well academically because mom, of course, my mother was Harriet Woods.
Oh, yes. We'll
Um,
talk about her in a
yeah,
little
yeah.
while.
And my father was Jim Woods, just as important. He was the president of the newspaper union, but they had expectations, and I did my best as a middle child, living up to those expectations, both athletically, which was a focus for both. My mother was also a great athlete, um, for both of them, and academically. So, I recognize the importance of doing well. I was a competitive guy from early on. And so I compared myself to others, and that continued. You talk about when you recognize where you fit, starting in grade school, then you get to junior high and you're playing games now more formally, and then high school, college, right up to the NFL. It's always a comparative thing where you're saying, how do I rank with somebody else? And so I was always aware where I sort of fit, both good and bad, with other athletes.
Well, obviously, you did pretty well. I mean, in high school, you were a great football player, obviously, and ended up going down to University of Missouri, which we'll talk about. And then in basketball, I don't really know how good you were in basketball, and I know damn well how good you were in baseball.
Well,
I don't know about basketball because I didn't know you as a basketball player.
well, at U City, I was the glue-footed white boy in basketball, and not there's no racism there. We were, my class was actually the last class. It was probably more white than black in 1974, but I had relationships and still have relationships. We had our 50-year reunion a couple years ago, and we still all get along because we went through it together. The changes in U City that took place as we transitioned from what was a predominantly Jewish community in the 60s
You
and
bet.
moving forward to my time frame after this mass exodus of people out to the parkways or wherever they went. Anyway, um, so great experience. Wouldn't give it up for anything. Still have relationships, and still remembering the days in U
Yeah.
City.
Pete, and how things have changed in 57 when I graduated. I'm about 17, 18 years, before
You look
you.
great, by the way, Coach.
Well, what the heck? Cosmetic surgery really helps, but
I'm
you
not
know.
buying it.
Anyway, listen. In my graduating class, there were 424 seniors at U City. We had one African American in our class. And I never, when you're in high school and you're a guy, you're playing your sports and you're trying to be nice to your girlfriend and all the other things. And I never really reflected on this girl until years after I was out. And she was the daughter of the custodian at U City. Her name was Denora Jones. Number one, she turned out to be really successful. She did some good stuff. But I thought, I wonder what that girl must have felt like every single day walking through U City. And U City, most of the kids there, you and I know, we were predominantly Jewish and pretty damn spoiled. And we kind of had kind of what we wanted all the time, or at least we asked for it. And here she is every day showing up. To me, that's a hero.
Right, right. Well, there's legacies everywhere, and I experienced that transition of going to, again, predominantly Jewish and white. I remember my freshman year, I was playing on the varsity baseball team, and there were 2 black guys total on the team. And by the time I graduated, now there's only 4 white guys on the team. But again, because I lived through that and transitioned with a lot of my teammates and classmates and others, I didn't sense that was as big of an issue as some made it before and since that time. And U City was the great melting pot, and really was a great role model in the
I
St. Louis area.
I won't say 100%, but I would say that most guys, and I guess women too, we might say, but most guys who competed athletically and you had a mixed locker room, you know what I'm saying about mixed locker room. You had
Yeah.
African Americans and you had white guys, right, in your locker room,
And Asian and
and Asian.
everything else.
Those are the guys who get it. They never had a problem. Now, there's some. We know that.
Well, yes, there was some, and I can tell you, even at Mizzou had, early '70s. We had one black starter at that time, until Tony Galbraith came along, and then we had two. But there was I mean, they had a rock, I think, on College Avenue or someplace that was still painted, Confederate colors in 1974.
Yeah.
So there was still a ways to go in Columbia, especially, and moving forward, I was a starter, got hurt my senior year, and Phil Bradley, who one of the all-time great players at the University of Missouri, succeeded me. He started as a freshman after I got hurt, but he caught a lot of heat. There are a lot of people that didn't see them, they didn't want to see an African-American player being the face of the program, which as a quarterback, you always sort of are. And he proved to be one of the great players and a great guy and the right person for that role.
Unbelievable guy. Let me tell you, I umpired a lot of baseball games down there. I think I umpired some games that you threw in, and you can evaluate me later, but don't do it on the air. So Phil Bradley, I remember him. I mean, just like I can't forget him. Everything he hit that I remember was to right center, deep right center. Gets to the big leagues, and whoever got a hold of him and kind of turned him around a little bit, we're hitting 30 homers a year.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember him hitting too many. I'm out of down in Columbia, Coach. But the big leagues, all of a sudden, he's hitting 30, 35 home runs. What an athlete.
Yeah. Great athlete. Great football player, Big 8 Offensive Player of the Year at least twice and maybe 3 times. And good guy. I still see him every once in a while. Not too often, but he comes in. I think he's still associated with Major League Baseball as one of their representatives, and St. Louis is one of his stops.
So let's finish up at U City. At U City, you were a scholar athlete.
Yeah, Mom would want you to remind our listeners of that.
Will your mom be listening?
No, my mom passed.
She did.
Yeah,
I'm
unfortunately,
sorry.
back in 2007. Yeah, she had leukemia, but
she was awesome.
She's still there. She's still eyeballing me, and I still remember, not high school, but when I was at Mizzou and they were talking about redshirting me, and her comment was, "Hey, I thought you were going to graduate early, not wait around another year." I said, "Mom, I don't think that's how it works here," but. A lot of focus with my parents on academics. Yeah, I was recognized, primarily through sports. I was a post-dispatch scholar athlete. I was one of the 5 finalists, went on the trip, and got an award, Tom McCann Trophy or something they gave out back then, that the academic player of the year. And, it
well, that's a big deal.
It was a big deal for my family, for U City, because it reflected something about the school district too. And it really was, back then, a top flight education for those who pursued that. For those academics were important. We had people that were at the same level as anybody in town. A lot of the WashU professors' kids and others that went to school there. And, when you have good, smart people in your class, it challenges you. Just like if you have good athletes on your team or you're playing against, that challenges you too. And I was challenged, and, I'm a competitive enough guy, as I said before. I wasn't going to take second place. So it worked out well. Again, with encouragement of family and others, I was really blessed.
Well, let's leave U City, but before we leave U City, let's mention a few of the men that you and I were talking about before, guys who helped mold you, and you can talk about Henry Buffa.
Yeah, Henry Buffa was the baseball coach from my freshman year on.
Our buddy Greeny,
Dick Greenblatt,
lived to be 100.
Call out to Greener. I'll have to give him a call after this. Still around.
He just passed, Coach. Greener passed hit 100 about 3 weeks ago, and then gone.
Oh,
I
I
mean, a
didn't know
couple
that.
days later.
Oh,
And
I
Shamsky
missed it.
called me when he heard that. Because see, Shamsky, he only played 1 year. His
Oh, is that
senior
right?
year. Yeah, Greener told me when Shamsky showed up, Shamsky was kind of like little, and then he kind of grew his senior year, and he decided, because he had moved in from Soldan. So Greener tells me, he says, this guy shows up. I don't know who the hell he is. Comes out for first day of practice. He's in the cage, and he's hitting. Then he goes out and starts shagging some fly balls. Greener says to me, Ron, I said to myself, don't screw that kid up. He's for real. But anyway, so you play
Well,
for
lots of
Greener.
Greener stories, and may he rest in peace now, I guess. Yeah, great memories of playing for those guys in baseball.
One more you mentioned. We talked about Greener. We talked about Buffa.
Henry Buffa.
And then there was you're a high school coach, football
Fred
coach.
Kovar was my basketball coach.
He was a great player.
Yeah, great player.
Oh, great player.
And my math teacher.
Oh.
Didn't let me get away with things in the classroom, but it was an enjoyable experience for those who had Fred Kovar, and challenging basketball coach. And then Glenn McKinney came in as the new head coach my sophomore year, which again, this transition, first African-American head coach
Yes.
at U City, and brought in a different mindset for my teammates who hopefully will hear this broadcast. Will smile and acknowledge Lamont Downer, Petey Anderson, may he rest in peace, and Kevin Ryland and some other guys I played with, Wayne Smotherson, who just ran for mayor in U City. Remember Glenn McKinney with some, I'm smiling here as I remember some of those tough practices that Glenn put us through, but and we just say we were always ready physically to play the game, and that was saying something because we only had 30-something guys trying out for the football team back then. Well, it was a different world, and my younger brother Andy also played on that team and played baseball and football, so a lot of great memories.
Wonderful memories.
And so Glenn McKinney and Ken Henderson was a coach on that team, later became the head coach at Washington University, because I coached for him my first year in law school, which is a whole nother story. I helped coach the WashU football team. There was, I'm spacing. Francis Pay came later as the head coach, and there are a couple others that I should remember. Right. Maybe I will before we finish.
Well, we're going to move on to Missouri, but before that, I got to say one thing about the great Greener. He is infamous in the 5-3 U City Ladue game. And the Greener, you know how he was. I got the story because I became very close to Jim Wagner, who was a coach of Ladue. He was an administrator when I was in Ladue, and I went out with Wagner a lot at the end of his life. He had retired. He was in his late 80s, and I used to take him out to lunch once a week. It was great. And I said, what? He said, well, both Greener's AD came in the locker room and told him, knock it off. And my AD basically told me the same thing. And I told my AD, I said, hey, I can't do anything. Greener's boys are holding the ball out there. What do you think I'm going to do? Go running out there and tackle one of them? And so I really believe Greener kept his teaching job. You know what I mean? I think that affected his basketball job.
All right, you got to give some background for that. I mean, this was a Ladue team that was much better than the U City team that Greener was coaching.
Yes.
So this was a strategy to hold the ball to give him any chance to win the game.
Greener's a winner.
Losing by 2 points and against a team like that showed that his strategy was right. It just didn't turn out for him in the end, which happens on occasion.
But think about this. That was probably over 50 years ago. And guess what? They'll be talking about that game forever, won't they, Pete?
That's right.
Okay, so you go down to Missouri. Steve Pizarkowicz, is he the head guy down there?
He was the quarterback. My freshman year, there was a guy named Ray Cherry. It was a quarterback that was starting in front of Steve, but Steve started pretty quickly thereafter, and then ultimately was drafted in the first round by the Cardinals here in St. Louis in 1977. A much criticized draft pick.
I heard it firsthand from Jim Hannafin.
Yeah.
So I won't say any more.
So anyway, but so unfortunately, Steve, in his own hometown, became a controversial figure. But great quarterback. Had a lot of records that he set as a quarterback, and I was behind him. And in fact, they were going to redshirt me, meaning not play the whole season and preserve a year of eligibility in 1976. Now, I had been playing baseball the year before, that spring before, our team won the Big 8 championship in baseball. And I was a pitcher on that team, and I thought my future was in baseball, and played that summer in the Shenandoah Valley League in Virginia, Waynesboro, Virginia. Had a great time till I had elbow problems. But I figured I'm going to tread water, but they're going to redshirt me in football and let Steve Bizarkowitz have his senior year. And then I'll start the next year or two, assuming I'm still around. Well, Sark gets hurt in the second game against Illinois, game that we should have won. We beat USC on the road, team that ended up being 10-1, 11-1 with a bowl game. I think they won the Rose Bowl that year. Had Ricky Bell as a running back, and Charles White, too, who later won the Heisman. So we win the first game. We lose to Illinois. Steve's got a problem with his arm. There's another background story that I really can't tell, but I end up starting the third game of that season, which, everyone figured we're throwing in the towel anyway because we're playing at Ohio State.
September 25th, 1976.
September 25th, 1976.
Yes, sir.
We're going to play the number 2 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, coached by Woody Hayes, one of the best teams ever. Hadn't lost at home in 5 years. And, still remember going in there on a Friday night, and the sports commentators on the news that night, there was no ESPN back then. So we're watching the sports programming, the sportscast, and the sportscaster says, well, here comes Missouri. They had a big win against USC, a letdown against Illinois, but their starting quarterback is hurt. So we had them at 14-point underdogs. But because Steve Bizarkowitz is out and Pete Woods is starting at quarterback, we're changing that to 35-point underdogs. So because of my starting the game, we're going to go down by 21 more points. And if I didn't have enough motivation at that point, that added a little extra tone to it, and it turned out rather well.
Turned out rather well. Turned out very well. And I'll brag on you. So you needed a 2-point conversion to win the football game. I believe it was 21-20 at the time, and you won 22-21.
That's right.
So the first conversion fails, but there's a hold. And those referees had to have some balls.
Oh, boy.
I mean, in Columbus, Ohio, to throw that flag, because holding is such a, if you don't,
they grabbed Joe
if you don't
Stewart's
call
jersey. They were holding on to his jersey.
So they had to call it, right?
It was in front of everybody.
You can't miss that.
Right.
So then, Mr. Woods, who's sitting across from me now, he ran it in for the 2 to win it. Just tell me what that felt like when you hit that goal line and crossed that stripe.
Well, first of all, Coach, we were exhausted. It was 95 degrees that day in Columbus, Ohio, on AstroTurf. And this is the old AstroTurf that, heat radiated up. I mean, your feet were just burning. And so context is, we get the ball at our own 20-yard line with about 4 minutes left, and we drive the length of the field, but we're exhausted. And so that end of the end zone, this is the U shape in Columbus, and the sound is deafening. Well, back then,
I can't imagine.
You had the right to ask the referee to silence the crowd. The rules changed.
Yes.
since then. So I turn around 2 or 3 times, and this is on YouTube, this, a tape of the game, Ohio State versus Missouri, 1976, and I asked the referee to call time and quiet the crowd, and they did. In fact, there's a shot of Woody Hayes out running out on the field telling everybody to be quiet. So we got a couple blows in that process, and yeah, with about 14 seconds left, I threw a pass to the corner of the end zone to Leo Lewis, now Dr. Leo Lewis, and he sort of caught the ball, and then his foot hit down, and then he got stripped. And if there'd been replay, I'm not sure we would have retained that touchdown. But they called it good. We ran the conversion to the right side, trying to throw the ball to Curtis Brown, another great athlete from Missouri, St. Charles High grad, and unsuccessful, but they held Joe Stewart, and then they called a complete opposite play, run an option play to the left, and the running backs covered, and I, duck my head down and dive over the line. And yeah, so what was it like? It was total chaos. I still remember, of course, getting mobbed on the sideline. Here's the guy that was the liability that I'm able to come through at the end. And then we get back to Columbia to the airport, and the cars are lined up all the way to the highway. And it seemed like thousands, probably wasn't that much, but, an incredible number of people. They tear down the goalposts in Columbia. It's a road game.
Yeah.
And it obviously was one of my most memorable game, just because it was my first start, and all the circumstances and what happened. And yeah, the memories are still pretty clear. They're helped by the fact that I can look at the tape every once in a while.
Well, let's move on to the other great, the Nebraska game. Let's talk about that, Pete Woods.
Yeah,
that's pretty damn memorable too.
Yeah, same year. Depending on the poll, they were ranked 2 or 3. We're on the road, kind of misty day in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we were playing. Again, top team, great, the black shirt defense of Nebraska, as they called them at the time. And
Devaney then? Bob Devaney? Or
no,
was it
this
Osborne?
was Osborne.
Osborne?
This is, Osborne was the head coach there, and, early on. But we'd had a punt blocked early in the game for a touchdown. They blocked it, and they recovered it in our end zone. And I think we were either down by 4 or up by 4 at this point. And we're backed up to our own, we started the 3-yard line, and then we got a penalty, and we're down to the 1.5-yard line. And everyone's saying, uh-oh, now they got a punt, and they got one blocked already. So it's 3rd down. And Dick Jamieson, who was our quarterback coach and calling the plays, and subsequently I think was offensive coordinator here, head coach in Indiana State, and then coached here with the Cardinals, calls this crazy play where we faked it in the line, and Joe Stewart, my favorite wide receiver, just took off down the field and ran as fast as he could, and that's pretty fast. Joe was probably the fastest guy on the team. I just let it out.
98-yard touchdown.
98-yard touchdown. 98 and a half. I think they should give me credit for 99, but
Yeah.
So we ended up winning that game. There was a quarterback named Vince Ferragamo who was the quarterback and ended up going with the Rams. I think he may have gone to the Super Bowl with the Rams, but we won 34-24. And, it was just one of those, we were at that time the roller coaster team in the nation. We beat these incredible teams on the road, and then we lose a game at home. In part because, we had probably less overall talent. Just our backup guys were not as good, and we get guys beat up with this tough schedule. And then we'd have some problems later on. But, great memories, those 2 games in particular. We beat Colorado at home. They went to the Orange Bowl that year against Ohio State. So that year we played 7 teams that went to bowl games. We beat 4 of them. And we didn't go to a bowl game ourselves because back then there were only like 12 games.
Yeah, one that wins 6 and you automatically go somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about 2 of your coaches down at Missouri University. And let's start first with your football coach, Al Onofrio. Tell me all about him. I always liked him, and I didn't know him, but I liked what I saw of him
great, honorable guy, low key. Was the mastermind of the Missouri defenses during the '60s and early '70s when Dan Devine was a head coach there.
Yes.
And Missouri had I think they had the best overall record during the '60s. Maybe they had the most uh, wins per season. I don't know. Anyway, great program in the '60s, and he was the assistant coach for Dan Devine, and then inherited sort of the head coaching job. And again, great defenses, and we had a lot of success. But unfortunately, we couldn't beat that team to the west, which shall remain unnamed.
Yes. We don't.
He
Yeah.
had problems with
Yeah.
that team.
Norm doesn't even spend any money over there with his
No,
basketball
that's right.
teams.
That's right. That's right. And so Al was a great guy, very honorable. You know, when Al Onofrio entered the room got quiet, and that's the way it was. And little different world now, but again, lots of things change, and I'm not going to be the old man in the front yard saying, "Get off my grass."
No.
It's a different world now. Players are making, more than, I do as a lawyer, with their NIL money now in the college ranks, a lot different than it used to be with us getting our $12 a week for our breakfast and laundry money.
Well, two of my really good friends, 1-2-3 Club members, Johnny Rowland and Gus Otto. And at a 1-2-3 meeting when this NIL came up, and we have a couple of attorneys in there, Sandy Pomerantz, and there's another guy, and they're talking about the legality of it and going through all this, lawyer talk. And then they get to Gus Otto, and they ask Gus, "What do you think of the NIL?" And Gus Otto was so blunt. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what I know about I know this. Missouri University, Alabama, you name the schools, they'll never, ever have a real Missouri football team again or Alabama football team again because guys will be there, and if they don't like it, they'll leave and they'll go to the next school."
Right.
I mean, right on the money.
There's no loyalty,
None.
except to the Bucks, and you get an occasional, Brady Cook is an example of a Missouri guy that went to Chaminade and then ended up at Missouri and stayed. And but those are few and far between. And if you're a good recruiter, I see now Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. I mean, he does really well in the portal, and the focus is less on high school players now.
Well, that's another thing that really bothers me. If you're a high school kid, and I was using this as an example, you're a high school senior, and Missouri. I'm just going to use Missouri as an example. I don't know. I'm just saying Missouri instead of any other school. So Missouri, they're recruiting this kid. He's going to be an offensive guard. I mean, and they really need him. And the kid's told his mom and dad, "That's where I want to go. I'm going." And about a week before signing, an offensive guard from Alabama wants to leave. He's 22 years old, and he wants to go to Missouri. What happens to this high school kid now? Hasn't signed yet. High school kid gets screwed. And that bothers me.
Yeah, I waited my turn. I didn't play till my junior year. So I understand, I think some of these kids need to show a little patience.
But they want to go there.
But they want to play.
Yeah.
And and playing means you get more money. You see it in the pros where guys want to play because you develop value to the team and you're worth more. And the same thing is true of some kid coming in as a high school player. Players are looking to play in a program where they're going to get an opportunity. Offensive linemen take a while to develop, but be that as it may, you want to be the guy. And if you're not the guy, because of the rules, you can transfer. I personally think there ought to be a one transfer rule, and then you only get to leave a second time if your coach leaves. If you go to choose a program, their second program, unless your coach leaves, you're there.
Amen.
And that, I think it's good for the players. I think it's good for the continuity. And as a fan, and I'm a Missouri fan, got my 4-season tickets and love to go down to games, but I want to see players that I can relate to and recognize and can support. And that means hopefully guys stay around for a while. I'll still take, you get the Ahmad Hardys that come in and transfer, but it's his first transfer, and now he's a big star, and hopefully he heals well from his off-season injury,
Yes.
and we're rooting for him again.
Well, yeah, we're pulling for him. Well, listen, I want to kind of jump around here a little bit with you. So I'm listing you as one of U City's great three-sport athletes. Okay. Is there anybody else you could name one at a time? A three-sport guy, probably in your era, Pete. I've got some others in my era. Gilkey would definitely go down there.
Yeah, I don't remember. Did Bernard play three sports?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Bernard, of course, is a great athlete and excelled in basketball and baseball in particular. I'm trying to think what guys we had. I don't think there were any others when my brother played three sports, and I'm sure there were others.
Well,
during the
there's
timeframe.
a couple of guys that I know of. There was a girl there that PT Jackson. I looked her up. She was a great athlete there. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
she might have played 4 sports this
Yeah, she was a basketball player, played at Carbondale maybe.
and yeah, and a volleyball player, and
Mhm.
she did it all. And
Petra? Is that what you're thinking?
yeah,
Petra
yeah,
Jackson.
that's how you-
Petra.
yeah,
Petra.
Petra Jackson. And then there was another lady over there, Celia Lambs. Did you know her?
Didn't know her.
I just did a little. I did more research on this than I ever did when I was in school. And then some of the great athletes. There was a guy at U City who was my idol when I was growing up, Terry Fales.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and Terry Fales went to Vanderbilt, and
He was
a-
player of the year in St.
oh,
Louis that
in
year.
both sports,
Yeah.
basketball and football.
Right.
And then Fales went to Vanderbilt, and he was best friends with Bobby Tim. Remember that name?
I
John
really don't.
Burroughs, three-sport guy.
Coach, you're dating me here a
I
little
know.
bit.
Well, yeah. But anyway, what was interesting when I did some research, Fales and Tim both went to Vanderbilt and became lifetime buddies, best friends, both very successful, in the business world. And Bobby Tim, when he was 71 years old, shot. I'm not a golfer, but he shot his age.
Oh,
That's not too bad as a
not
coach.
too bad.
And he was a pitcher in baseball, they tell me.
Oh,
But I only knew him as a basketball player because I watched Burroughs when I was a young kid. They played Puxico over at Washington U. Puxico had won like 70 games in a row. They were down in a Boot Hill,
yeah.
and Burroughs beat him at the buzzer. And the Burroughs kid who threw the ball in was about 3 feet inbounds to make that long pass.
Oh,
And the St. Louis refs, they didn't see it. You know how that happens.
all right. Yeah, you're talking referee talk.
I know it. So anyway, so some of the U City good athletes that I remember, not three sporters, Pomerantz,
Sandy, yeah.
Husan,
Kenny Holtzman, of course.
Kenny, and Shamsky.
Yeah.
We had some great athletes.
Hassan
that's
Houston was a great player during my era. Got a scholarship to Kansas. Ooh, I said the name. Yikes.
Okay.
That school to the west.
Yes.
And then he ended up playing football, and then ended up making the Bears team, Chicago
Yes, he
Bears
did. He
team.
was and he passed away young, Pete.
He did.
Young.
Yeah, he had some long-time health issues. But
yes.
well, I had there was a guy named Steve Robinson that played baseball baseball and basketball. I just saw Steve. He's out in San Francisco. He was in my class. Lamont Downer and P.D.
sure.
Henderson both went to Mizzou. Lamont was a great two-sport athlete, football and basketball. And there were other guys during that time frame that I admired. Of course, go back to U City, water polo teams, and
Sure.
those were a lot of the ones that stood out when we had struggles in football and basketball. So,
Well, Dr. Don Sauer, who was a graduate in '52, he was a three-sport athlete and he was a big-time surgeon in St. Louis. He'd probably be close to 90 now.
Oh. okay,
But a great athlete. But anyway, we have some great athletes. Let's close this. So I want you to talk to me about your mom
oh yeah,
and her. My grandson. I have a bunch of grandkids, but my oldest grandson, he's the one who really put this thing together for me. He wanted to do something nice, and he told me today. I'm not going to get into politics, but my grandson, he's a very liberal guy, and he said, God, his mother, she was elected the same year as Ronald Reagan. How did that happen? And man, that is unbelievable, Pete.
That was incredible accomplishment. She was, I grew up, she was a stay-at-home mom, but always, get off on my mother's family in particular, but my grandmother was a great athlete. This is Ruth Wise Friedman, married, but she's the Wise family from Cincinnati, which started the first Reformed temple in the United States. Isaac M. Wise was her great uncle. Anyway, my grandmother was a great athlete, played on the tennis tour with Babe Didrikson, Zach Aharius, and Bill Tilden and all that back in the 20s. My mother was also a great athlete, but she was a stay-at-home, dedicated to me and my two brothers. And mid-60s, I'm 10 or 11 years old, she decides to get involved in the community. The story is that there was a loose manhole cover in front of our house, and cars were cutting down Princeton to miss the light at Midland and Delmar. And she got a petition passed, blocked off at Pennsylvania Avenue in Delmar, the street, so they couldn't cut through anymore. She saw what you could do in politics, decided to run for council, city council in U City eventually, then ran for state senate in 76, and then again, I guess in 80, but in 82, she ran against John Danforth for U.S. Senate, which was an incredible race. She ends up losing by 26,000 votes statewide.
No
So
kidding. That's
a point
awesome.
and a half. 13,000 votes switch. John Danforth, of course, was a big advocate of Clarence Thomas in the U.S. Supreme Court. No John Danforth, probably no Clarence Thomas. The world would have changed if Mom had just gotten those additional 13,000 votes. But she cared about people. That's what she was all about. I think she could win in any environment. Yes, there was a Republican Reagan landslide, so to speak, in 1980, and then 84 when he ran again, and she was the only and the first woman to win statewide office. She was lieutenant governor in 1984. And just an inspiration for me because I could see how someone, an individual, could change lives. And Dad was the same way. He was a union president, always dedicated to the blue-collar workers. The working man was what's important to him. And, in my law practice, I've been practicing now for 41 years, and I've gravitated toward cases where people need help. And I'm in private practice, represent individuals and small businesses. But that's sort of been the focus of my practice is caring for people, helping people. I took on the board presidency of a homeless mission here in St. Louis called 3 Steps Home in the North City area. And so a life of service, Jewish tradition through Mom, it's a life of service. How can you help make lives better? And that's really been the hallmark of our family, and really what I learned from both my parents and those who came before them. And I've tried to pass it on. I've now got 3 grandkids. I have 3 kids, 3 granddaughters, 1 more on the way. And, hopefully what I've passed on is service, a life of caring about others, compassion, and character.
Well, I will say this. You were raised well, and I'm sure your kids were raised well, and your grandkids will be raised well. You're a good man, Pete Woods.
I appreciate you, Ron.
You're a good man, and I also am absolutely thrilled that you and I are University City Indians, not Lions.
All right, I'm going to try to avoid being too politically correct, but I will always be an Indian.
Me too. Love it.
Good being
and
with
by
you.
that stadium you played in, Henry Schemmer and Stubmall's names are there, and they belong there, don't they, Pete?
And they're just installing bricks from the Alumni Association. My name is on one of them. I bought a brick, and I encourage U City alums to participate in that. There's still an opportunity to buy a brick before the fall.
How much are they? I'll buy a brick.
I don't remember. But
you know
look
what?
up U City Alumni Association.
I was a good athlete in U City, but I was not a real scholar or well-behaved. They might not let me put that brick down, Pete.
They're not checking your GPA, I promise.
Okay. Hey, it's been great. And when I sign off, we're going to sign off now. I always say thank you for being here. If you like our show, and I think we had a great show today, I'm really happy with it. If you see it, it'll be on YouTube. It comes on the Thursday after this meeting. That's when it'll be public. But I'll send it to you, Pete, as soon as I get it before it's public. And if you like it, put a like and then share it with your friends. And I hope that the people who are listening today have friends. I think most of you do. And last thing, today's the youngest we'll ever be, Pete.
There it is. All right.
All right,
it's all
guys.
in front of us.
Always. Thank you.